Does anyone have anything for the advanced agenda? Ms. Thompson.
So we received a letter from the NAACP about an invitation to Congresswoman McMorris Rogers to meet with City of Spokane Valley, City of Spokane, and the county. And I would like to see us move forward with a municipal action guide for what we've just heard about, and I attended the class back at the National League of Cities, is REAL, Race, Equity, and Leadership, and look at developing a policy in hand, working with the NAACP to see what we could do to advance racial equity in our city. And I'd be willing to take that on to reach out to the NAACP and see what we could do so we're prepared when we do have the meeting with the Congresswoman, that we might be able to have some policies or some action plan for our city. Or at least a brief draft, not even a draft, but just some ideas of what we could do.
Mr. Wick.
What are some ideas? I mean, I wasn't there at the class.
Well, the ideas are that you look at your policies and see are there any issues that are not equitable for everyone. Looking at neighborhoods, do they share resources? Is there a guiding statement? You know, our law enforcement is always looking to treat every citizen the same. It's just bringing priorities to make sure that we make connections with communities of color, that maybe the LGBTQ community, that everyone is welcome, and that all the policies we have with the city, whether it's housing or anything, that we can just have an equity policy that the city staff and council works from to make sure that we are inclusive.
I would posit right here that we already have that and that we might enumerate it, but I don't see that we need to go forth further down that road necessarily. I know what the people who regularly appear on our front yard out here have to say, but they're in error, simply put. Okay?
So I guess, so I'm just offering to, and I guess I just could meet with the NAACP folks and just kind of talk about how we can work with the NAACP, how we could just make sure that we have equity for all neighborhoods. I mean, just as Councilman Wood was just talking about, we want to make sure that every neighborhood feels like they matter. So when this mobile home that is covered in graffiti down at the edge of the Edgecliff community and towards the border of our city, we want to make sure that our policies are that every neighborhood is treated the same, that we get out, we look at that, we find it, and we treat it. Whereas if it was, let's say, right in the heart of our city, so we would take care of that maybe more rapidly. I'm just saying, looking at that and seeing how we can make sure that everyone, just saying, like to explore it, and it is happening in cities across the state and the nation to make sure that there are equity policies in place for all citizens.
If I may, I think I generally understand the sentiment. I guess I confess I wouldn't have any idea how one would begin that process, but perhaps you seem to have a very real sense of how one would proceed.
Well, so this is a municipal action guide advancing racial equity in your city, and it comes from the REAL, which we heard a presentation from the director of REAL, which is Race, Equity, and Leadership initiative, is dedicated to helping local leaders understand and gain the tools necessary to combat racial disparities in their communities. And there are 6 steps. So it's looking at the definition of racial equity is that race does not predict one's success while also improving outcomes for all, looking at policies, practices, and procedures that work better for white people than people of color, often unintentionally or inadvertently. So I'm just saying that looking at ways to eliminate racial disparities, heal racial divisions, and build more equitable communities. I just thought it might be a tool to use to talk with partners in the community like the NAACP, so that when we do come to the meeting with them, that we would have some ideas of how we could work together with them.
Ms. Haley?
So maybe it would make more sense to have you come forward with what we already have instead of trying to reinvent the wheel. You don't recognize that we have anything?
I'm giving you a blank look. I don't know that we have policies that necessarily address that. I mean, we have the EEO policies. Eric, are you?
I know as a body, council's adopted a resolution of full inclusion. Beyond that, in terms of looking at specific policies, we could see what the police have. We can, I mean, I'm not quite sure, we could look at land use codes, but I'm not sure what we're looking for necessarily. I think some of it is we haven't had the class necessarily that you had, so there's a challenge of knowing what we're looking for.
I think that at this point, we don't know what we don't know.
Right, but since we're a contract city, we don't have the same control over the people that are out visiting our citizens like we would if we were a city that was managing all that to some extent.
Ms. Pete?
I would just say Councilmember Thompson is our representative and went to the National League of Cities and had the training. And so she offered to reach out to the NAACP. I don't see that there's anything wrong with at least getting some information and coming back. And if we decide it's something that it's not going to work, or if it's reinventing the wheel, or if it's just not something that the council decides we can do, we can go there. I don't think there's anything wrong with exploring it, especially if the Congresswoman and are trying to have a discussion about this, and if that's something important. I mean, we should at least have some information about whether we can do something better or if we're already doing those things. I don't think there's a problem into looking into it at least.
Mr. Woodard?
I've gone to a lot of the NLC classes and sessions in the past, and when you're there, they have real problems. I think we're trying to make a problem where there isn't one, and I say that from the last week of experiences of talking to 4 very dark-skinned people of color, and I've asked them the question, do you feel that you're prejudiced against? Do you find discrimination here in the city of Spokane Valley? And every one of them said, no, this is a great place to live. I said, have you ever had any problems with the police? One said that he was stopped because he was as dark as the hat on Bob West's head back there. And he said, I was stopped one evening. He wanted to know what I was doing and where I was going. I told him. And he then said, if I've done something wrong, arrest me. And the officer said, no, you weren't doing anything wrong, just checking to see what was going on, who you were. I hadn't seen you around before, and you were driving a car that was a little bit beat up, and I just wanted to know what you were doing. And so, no problems. He's had no other problems. He's been here for a very long time now. And I've talked the same kinds of questions of my Hispanic people that I know very well, and Vietnamese, the Filipinos, and others, and there just isn't a problem here in Spokane Valley. Do you have people that are rude and crude? Yes. They could be sitting in this room. I don't know. I don't know everybody sitting here. But generally speaking, they don't feel prejudiced or biased against. I don't know that we want to create a problem. And I think that's part of what's been happening, is that there's no problem and one is being made to make it seem like we have one. And I think to meet with, to have the discussion with the Congresswoman and NAACP and whatnot would be a precursor to doing anything else that we have, because unless there is a problem, why are you finding a solution to something you don't have? And we do have the inclusion of all in our resolution, and I think that we have to be very careful, because things, actions and words mean something to most people. And so when you start crying that we have a problem, or it looks like we have a problem, or we want to discuss a problem before we have the problem, or those kinds of things, people take note of that, and they start to question a lot of their own beliefs. They start to question our community. We have a fabulous community, and we have a lot of ethnic groups that look like all of us up here on the council. They're light-skinned, but they are not us, and they feel comfortable. They love building businesses here. They love the neighborhoods they live in, and they live in a lot of them live in very nice neighborhoods, so they're interspersed. They're not, I don't know any one spot in the valley that I can go to that's purely Hispanic, or purely Vietnamese, or purely Russian, or purely any other group. I don't know of any of them. If anybody knows, I'd like to know. I haven't experienced them. And I do know from a realtor standpoint, boy, you want to be prejudiced on equal housing, you're going to get slapped so hard by HUD and the federal government, you don't even want to know what hits you. It's not just a steamroller. They put the water in the tanks and they run you over. So doesn't mean that we can't look, but I don't think that it pertains, at this point, anything rises to an alert level, to me at least. Thank you.
Ms. Thompson.
Well, I'm not saying there's an alert level. I'm just saying that I think a deeper understanding of what equity is. I mean, it's not just the color of someone's skin. There are a lot of other equity issues, and I would just like to take a look at. And like I say, I could certainly reach out and just, for my own use, find out how we could work, or how I could work more with the NAACP to promote equity for all people. And it isn't saying there's an issue. It's not saying we have a problem. I think by calling it out, it's embracing that we want to make sure there's equity for all. And when you hear our kids at the Spokane Valley Youth Voice, there is discrimination in our schools, and there is fear among especially our youth of color. So that we do have issues that we could bring to the forefront and help to make it a better community for all. But I can certainly, check it out on my own. I just thought, it was an opportunity to bring it up because it would have fit nicely with the NAACP meeting we're going to be invited. There's not even a date for that yet. So I could certainly, I could just do some research and be prepared for that meeting and partnership on my own.
City manager comments?
And I have none this evening.
What? Are we doing a commercial here? Okay. Next, we're going into executive session. Ms. Haley.
Mr. Mayor, I move that council adjourn into executive session for approximately 30 minutes to discuss acquisition of real estate, and that no action will be taken upon return to open session.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Show us out at 7:12.